Clearly, I haven't learnt from the sleep-deprived consequences of playing Dead Space, because my name is Zoe Delahunty-Light and I cannot wait for the Callisto Protocol. The space survival horror game set in a prison with biophages, similar to, yet superior to the necromorphs of Dead Space, rampaging through the corridors and killing our main character Jacob in so many visceral ways. The lovely Chris Tapsell, Eurogamer's reviews editor, got to talk to Glenn Schofield about the Callisto Protocol, and I've cannibalized his interview to bring you 8 new details about the Callisto Protocol. Callisto Protocol's combat is described by Schofield to be like a sandbox, with way more complexity to it than you'd expect from a survival horror game. Prison safety protocols have been disengaged in the prison that you find yourself trapped in, so you can now play with all those weapons you're definitely not supposed to have access to. So first, you've got the grip gun, which is used by guards as a prisoner control weapon. They treat the prisoners like cattle, using it to move the inmates from cell to cell, pushing prisoners back in riots, and generally just treating them like objects. But it works in your favour now. The grip gun can pick up enemies and then disengage that grip with an almighty force, and you're best off using that force to shoot enemies into the environmental hazards across the prison. Discard those enemies a while later, and in the meantime, you can use them as a meat shield. Anyone shooting you will be aiming for their arms and legs though, even while they're protecting you, so they're not going to be much of a meat shield after a while. As well as the already seen ranged action with guns and whatnot, stealth is also viable with your trusty shiv. That won't get you super far though, as the enemies are far more sophisticated than in Dead Space and will start to notice that their slavering comrades keep dying off. So when they start catching on to you, you can switch to the less stealthy but still melee stun baton that's at your disposal. The split between melee and ranged weapons is about half and half according to Schofield, as the developers want you to be worried about how many bullets you have left and only use bullets in extreme situations, like when biophages are far away and you can remove their limbs with a little less risk than if they were up close and personal. However you decide to take on the biophages, you can upgrade all those weapons in question using the 3D printer, which has a huge skill tree that, again according to Schofield, would take 2 whole playthroughs to completely unlock. This weapons upgrade system has been said to be similar to the workbench from The Last of Us Part 2, judging by IGN who got to see it in action. You'll be physically attaching items onto your weapons, making it much less detached than simply using a computer screen. Beta paths are Callisto Protocol's way to flesh out their prison more than a linear story could cope with. Beta paths are a fancy word for hidden areas and routes that will tell you more about the world you find yourself in. They might involve searching for stuff, or some of them fill in the blanks a little bit when it comes to what's been going on in the prison. One that Schofield mentioned is described as being a, quote, pretty grotesque shower, unquote. Hopefully my stomach can cope with whatever that ends up being. Biophages, the necrotizing enemies in Callisto Protocol, are far more sophisticated than Dead Space's necromorphs. The virus that lives inside them will protect itself at any cost, so fight them and all of a sudden tentacles are liable to burst out of their various orifices made by whatever killed them, realistically speaking, probably other biophages, and those tentacles need to be shot ASAP. If they're not, biophages will morph right in front of your eyes, becoming bigger, better, stronger, faster, and, unfortunately, deadlier. Progress further into the Callisto Protocol and the biophages will start to mutate faster and faster. Lumbering biophages are joined by a biophage that can shoot parasites that will chow down on you if you don't get rid of it sharpish. Cutting off their limbs isn't a sure way to secure your safety either, as biophages can and will grow them back. One interview even mentioned that there's apparently a creature with 2 heads that, if you cleave it down the middle, turns into 2 biophages. Ew. Biophages are more than just hunks of flesh and teeth and horror. They'll learn from you and alter their attacks based on how you act. Constantly use melee attacks, and eventually the monsters will learn to block them, so you'll need to switch up and change your approach, or you'll be very not alive very quickly. Within the biophages, the virus that controls them is growing and learning, hence why they're able to adapt to your attempts to survive. Sound is a big part of Callisto Protocol, and it's gonna make you almost do something rather nasty in your underwear, and that's thanks to something called the Apprehension Engine. It's this instrument whose entire function is to terrify you with unholy, primal sounds, and Brian Eno called it the most terrifying musical instrument of all time. It's already been used in The Lighthouse and The Witch, but has yet to be included in any video game. So that's what you should be cursing when some audio cue makes you jump. All we've seen of the Callisto Protocol so far depicts our unfortunate main character trying to survive in the prison. However, a small glimmer of good news is that he's not utterly alone. And no, I don't mean the Biophages. Schofield confirmed that there are other characters, and one is even a follower of yours for a while, accompanying you through the prison and what remains of it and its inhabitants. The prison itself isn't just made up of cells either, as being on the moon, whoever runs the prison has decided to make use of all that cheap inmate labour. A wood processing factory is within its walls, where plants are grown in the biome for the inhabitants and wardens of the prison to survive on. Being on a moon means you can't exactly nip out to the shops to stock up on supplies, I guess. Not everything is going to be fed to you through clumsy character exposition. Instead, with Schofield specifically mentioning that you'll need to look for audio logs to fill in the gaps about what happened in the prison. With the total number of cutscenes filling from 45 minutes to an hour of the game, you won't be left completely in the dark about what's going on. I just hope this time around that the Biophages weren't created from some sort of supernatural force, as the idea of humans experimenting on prisoners is something that is just as horrifying as the Biophages themselves, if you ask me. I've heard an alien invasion being mentioned in interviews, so I'm guessing that's where the Biophage virus originates from. We are in an era of video games now where people have got really used to jump scares and the traditional scares you can expect in a video game. From corridors being chase sequences to mannequins moving from where you last saw them. So how is Callisto Protocol going to make sure it doesn't become too predictable with its scares? Schofield says that music plays a huge part in that. According to him, it's all about picking moments where players don't expect to be scared, so not right at the end of a piece of music when it's built to its crescendo, but somewhere in the middle. Or when you're coming to a door and the music is building and you open it and nothing happens. Or doing something like scaring you at a door in the beginning of the game, so then from then on you're a little worried whenever you come up to a door, the same feeling as when you open a box and a parasite jumps out, that kind of thing. Whatever scares are in Callisto Protocol, the developers' understanding of the patterns created in horror means they're definitely going to make me swear in terror quite a lot. Schofield mentions a DLC in passing, saying they might patch some extra deaths into it, as God knows there's already a lot of grisly deaths in the Callisto Protocol, so a DLC could be on the way. Now, on to death, one of my many morbid interests. The developers behind the Callisto Protocol have been working on something called, I'd love how blunt this is, the gore system. You can probably guess what that's being used for. Engineers and artists spent time tearing every enemy apart so they could fine-tune how the gore works. Schofield said that you may even never see the same torn-apart guy twice. Schofield also mentions that they wanted each and every person to have a different, horrific experience. So not only does the Callisto Protocol have a bunch of horrible deaths, but then the way that Jacob, our main character, is built, he can be torn apart just by a normal attack without any kind of special finishing sequence. It's gonna be grisly. Might want to keep a bucket nearby. Callisto Protocol is going to be very linear, so you won't be hanging around or backtracking or have an open world area or anything, as Schofield puts it. There's no way you're going to be getting the same kind of hand-holding you got in Dead Space though, where you could summon a line that would show you the exact path you had to take. Schofield says he's done with that. It's time for you to find your way around yourself by using your own smarts. And that's 8 new details about the Callisto Protocol. Is there anything you think Callisto Protocol can learn from Dead Space? Let me know in the comments below, and whether you think you're actually going to get it. I definitely am. If you liked the video, thanks very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurogamer, as we have a new video out almost every single day. Now, I'm going to go and study the footage of the biophages, because even though they're pretty horrific, I still have to know how they look and how they were possibly created, because I'm just morbid like that. So, I'll see you lot next time.